Ketan,
Hi.
thanks for joining me. Really appreciate it. I'd love to get into your background. We've been chatting off camera and you're a really interesting bloke and lots of experiences. I really want to get into everything, but for just the purposes of introducing yourself, give us a little bit of a Ketan pitch.
Sure. So Ketan Dattani, father of 4, husband of 1, owner and founder of Buckingham Futures, which is a talent acquisition business, recruitment really, within the environmental health sector. It's something I've been doing for close to 3 decades and very passionate about environment generally, sustainability, and being the best version of my own self.
Love that.
Thank you.
That. I love the way you sort of had to say husband of 1. It's like, well, not many people would admit to that. But so the environmental health sector, in terms of recruitment, what does that actually mean in terms of what kind of roles are you actively?
So environmental health,
for?
Unfortunately, it's misunderstood, but it's anything that affects any environmental aspects that affect human health. So it could be the food you eat, health and safety, housing conditions, the air you breathe, the water you drink, that all is within environmental health.
Yeah.
So however the environment affects human health is kind of, pretty much a synopsis, but it's vast.
I was going to say, obviously this is something that's kind of coming to the fore right now, isn't it? Environmental health and just health in general. And we're seeing a lot of content. We're seeing a lot of people talking about it. You must be in your element. You must be getting quite a lot of inquiries through, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not always been like this. In the early days of working within the sector, I was almost like banging my head on a brick wall. People didn't understand the importance of the environment. Thankfully, people are a lot more knowledgeable, a lot more aware of their own activities on the environment, and people are thinking about not just their sort of well, but for future generations. So yeah, it's a lot more political now, a lot more money, a lot more people are looking at careers in the environment. So but it's a good place to sort of be right now, for sure. And I think, the future is definitely a lot brighter.
It's funny you say that though, because the media paints a different picture.
Yeah.
The media paints a very glum picture of what our future looks like. And you seem to be quite optimistic about it.
I am, yeah. Look, a lot of, the degradation has been done, but we can certainly stem the tide. I think this is probably at the point where we can still stem the tide. If everyone starts living more sustainably and actually sort of looking at their own carbon footprint and how to mitigate it on an individual level, company level, national and international level, I think definitely the future is brighter.
I think the thing is though, is that Pandora's box has been opened, and in that box is abundance.
Absolutely.
We live in an age of abundance. Everything is everywhere, and especially in the West and the first world for sure. But, you can't take that away from people. People are going to.
No, you can't take that away. But then you have to see how can you enjoy the benefits of what's in the Pandora's box, but also mitigate that. So how can you balance it? And that's where, there's a lot of education and awareness and even with me, I do tree planting initiatives locally, things like that. So you offset what you're doing. 2 weeks from now, we're doing a beach clean.
Oh, nice.
So just you're trying to mitigate what your footprint is, and I think that's what everyone should be doing or encourage others to do as well.
I definitely agree. That we need to be doing more. I personally don't think there is enough education out there personally around the whole thing.
Well, when
we get told what we should be doing.
Absolutely, but I think there's a lot more passion. Sadly, the demographics are not representative. The environmental sector is the second least diverse sector after farming in the UK. But there is a lot more awareness than when I was growing up. Because it was seen almost as nerdy or odd when I was trying to work out biospheres and which, the ecosystem and all the different sort of how they were like interacting with each other and stuff like that. And I'd try and talk about it. I was so passionate, and I'd be like, what? People be talking about football or playing out or other stuff. And now it's a topic of conversation that I can, because we volunteer with a lot of schools, colleges and universities, and a lot of young people are more aware now than they've ever been.
And what was your experience? You know, talking about colleges and schools, you know, yourself growing up, what was that experience like?
School?
Well, yeah, school, childhood.
I hated school. So I was quite academic early, sort of pre-primary. You know, I felt I was quite ahead. But when I started school, I realized that I was made to feel different straight away, being the only Asian kid. Actually, early primary was nice. It was only later primary where other kids started to try and make, like, wouldn't want to play with me, and I'd be just sitting in the playground quite by myself.
Why was that, do you think?
Well, they'd openly say, you know, derogatory terms. My mum said that, "Oh, look, if I play with you, I'll catch something."
Seriously?
Yeah. So even friends of mine, I remember actually when it happened. So about the age of 6, it was up to the age of 6, we used to play football and kick-ups and stuff like that, rounders. And then over that summer, I came back at 7. So my birthday's in August, so I would have just turned 7. And in fact, that's when I realized as well, I mean, I'll tell you a very sad story. I've never even spoken about this. Basically, so we had a 7th birthday party, and my mum and dad had a hall and stuff. And basically no one came. And all the other kids in the state, they was talking about basically saying that, you know, if you go to a Pakis party, you're going to get ill. So before these were my mates and stuff, and that really hurt. And then I still had to go and then sit in the classroom with these kids, right? For the next how many years. So it was school. I hated school, in all honesty. And the teachers didn't make it any better for me. In primary school, even early secondary school, they'd come up to me and they'd talk really slowly right in my face and say, "Do you understand?" And they'd get laugh out of all the other kids and all that sort of stuff. So it was a difficult period for me. And then, yeah, it was difficult. And then then I started bunking off school just to basically, it's hostile. Because even between lessons, I'd have to go through the corridor and there's a chance I'll get jumped. Very strong chance I'd get jumped, right? And like from English to maths, it's like, fuck, am I going to do this? I'm trying to wait. School bell's gone. I had to plan my whole day. Dinner times, most of the time I got my dinner money robbed that day. So I can't tell my mum and dad I didn't have my lunch at school. Do you know what I mean? Because they would check me, but I used to keep my money in my sock. And stuff like that. So school was difficult, man. I'm not going to lie. But it made me the person I am today. And then I started messing around a lot. As in, I just didn't want to go to school. But I'd leave. My mum and dad, you know, very hardworking, first generation refugees, just working all the hours God sends. They'd go to school in the morning. They'd leave for work in the morning, but I'd have my uniform on. I'd go out. The only place that was open was the library because, and it was warm and it was safe. So I'd go to the library and I'd read about ecology, biospheres. I used to go to the adult section because I was reading books far ahead of what I should, you know, for kids. But then I'd about 12 o'clock go back to the estate. And these times now I've kind of got into what's going on around the estate. And the people that I'm interacting are waking up around 12:1. Customers, basically. So I was not going to school. Thought I was a little entrepreneur on the estate, hanging around with, it's like a youth club, got friends with most of the Caribbean kids. And yeah, going to the library every morning, hanging around, come home at normal time as I've been school all day, and basically missed most of the latter part of my high school. But the turning point for me was when we had the careers day, and this lady, and I was so excited to go and speak to her because about my future, and I wanted to talk basically. So when she asked me, what do you want to do when you grow up? I said, I really want to be involved in captive breeding and reintroduction of endangered species, preferably like large mammals.
Said no child ever until you.
And then she just looked at me for probably about 30 seconds, but it seemed like an hour. And she goes, "Don't your mum and dad have a shop?" I'm like, "No." She said, "Well, what will we do then? I've just sort of told you what I wanted to do." So that was like, fuck this whole system, man. It's not for me. So basically, I started getting in trouble with police and everything at this point. I'm just on roads, and then I'm a juvenile. So my parents have to come and getting phone calls from the police, say, look, your son's been arrested for this. So from a nerdy kid, subject to like extreme racism, to basically like, I thought I was a rude boy now.
It's incredibly...
And it was a defense mechanism. Really inside, I was still probably that secret nerd. But now I've got my gold teeth, I've got my suits, my hairstyles. I'm just
your armor. Your armor.
And I'm thinking I'm the main guy. And then because my affiliations with other people, I was now not getting jumped ever. People didn't like me any more than they did before, but they kind of just left me be, because it would have been a lot more repercussions for them.
So you were in survivalist mode.
Yeah.
It's funny as well that you've mentioned you're from a family of refugees, and we were talking beforehand as well, and I find it's incredibly poignant that you're here today, given everything that's going on at the moment, and how sort of separatist and divisive like the country is becoming, and the media story that's been spun out. But clearly that kind of stuff, as much as it might be seen as being cyclical and, it's repeating itself almost again, that's not stopped you though. You're an incredibly successful man, and you're good with your business, and you're making an impact. How does one go through that experience of racial stereotypes, abuse, maybe not the best environment to grow up in and thrive, and then end up where you are today? How does one do that?
To be honest, my mindset changed because of circumstances, and I realized that out of that I was the main man in that council estate, but beyond the walls of that council estate, I was a victim again, because then it was gang rivalry with other minority kids. So it wasn't racism now. Then it was gang rivalry with other minority kids. So, and we've got family in Leicester and family in Coventry. So I was spending a lot of time in the Midlands, and I realized that life is a bit different beyond what I'm experiencing. In fact, very different.
And you grew up in London.
Yeah. So it wasn't so hostile, and people you'd have mates, you'd have black mates, white mates, you'd knock for each other, you hang out together, buy a bit of weed together, go to the park. It didn't matter what colour you were. It was just mates. And so the turning point for me, there's a couple of turning points, but really, the age of 17, 18, I realised that I think maybe being Asian helped a little bit, but if I looked at my extended family, they were all doing their GCSEs, doing their A-levels, going to uni, and I felt like I was falling behind academically. Like my parents weren't proud. I'm on a curfew, I'm gang affiliated, and my parents weren't proud. But that sort of, I had that in the back of my mind that that's how it should be, but I couldn't really see myself doing that. And then what happened was, there's two things that happened quite very close over one summer holiday actually. So I was doing, under the guidance of probation services, I was doing some work, and because of my love of nature, so I discovered a colony of great crested newts, which is an endangered species. I told my probation officer that we will have to clear this ground up, and I said to my probation officer, we can't do this. He said, protected species. He's like, you're just always trying to get out of the way. And I think I had about 110 hours left at this point, yeah? So I went to the local library museum. They had a museum upstairs. I said, look, I've just discovered a colony of great crested newts. Next day I've come, they've cordoned that off. And we had to go and do a church. We had to go and pay a church or something. So I still had to do what I had to do. But I was like, I'm thinking, I'm so passionate about it. There's got to be careers in this. There's got to be. And my hero growing up, and still is, was David Attenborough. So I'm like, but you can't be what you can't see. There was no Asian David or black David Attenborough, was there? Right? So he's my hero. And I'm like, and so that happened. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be something that's going to let me study something I'm passionate about. And forget what my teacher said about my parents having a corner shop. I'm going to make it happen. So that was something. Then what happened also at the same time, my grandfather passed away and my parents, we had to go to a religious event. And I wasn't in London. And the guys I used to always be with, from the moment we woke up, they were involved in a violent robbery. And they got incarcerated. And that was the waking point for me when I visited them. Like, nah, I can't do this.
I'm not heading that way.
Nah, I was this close to it. And I had conditional discharge and stuff. So one wrong move, that was it. So I went to the college. The first day and I said, I want to do GCSEs. And they said, we only offer retakes. You've got no GCSEs. I went back the next day and I'm just a big hall. So I'm like trying to look for someone with a friendly face to enroll me. They said, no, you can't do GCSEs. And the third day I went back and the gentleman that interviewed me, his name is Dr. Theo Kronje, head of science. He said, look, don't let me down. And I'd never done, so GCSE retakes is someone who's done it. I hadn't got into academia at this point. So he allowed me at head of science. But my problem was I couldn't really adjust very well initially. So I'm turning up to classrooms when I want without stationery and I wasn't getting into the right. I couldn't get back into that student mode. And he kept on having chats with me and he's from Ghana. And he said to me, you know what, like you've got potential, but you keep letting yourself down. You're not letting me down. But now all the lecturers have signed a petition. They don't want me. They say I'm disruptive, so they don't want me in their classes. And he said, look, so that was my final straw. Then I had beef with other gangs and it was a crazy, college was also a crazy time for me. Somehow I got through. And then he goes to me, apply to a university. And I'm like, university? It's a big word. I don't know anyone that's gone there. You know, people from my state don't go to university. And it's like, apply. So this was, then after A-levels, right?
Yeah.
And he's like my uncle now. I love the guy. So basically, yeah, he actually made me apply to university. I got 3 offers.
Amazing.
Now what? Okay, and I was thinking in my mind, all right, let me go to university. I can say to people, I've been to uni, go for a week or so. That was my mindset. So I can say, I've been uni. They can come up. You know, it's nice to say that, but it's not going to be for me. I've gone there now. So basically, I had 3 options to go to, 3 options. And I chose London South Bank University because of the proximity. But the problem is, I have to go by bus through enemy territories to campus. So for 3 years, I'm traveling on the bus like this because if I'm going through like other areas where we've had some serious run-ins with other kids, right? And if they see me and I'm on my one now, so I did that for 3 years. In fact, the first semester I couldn't even really fit in. I was thinking like everyone's out to get me, and my only sort of dealings really were like police and probation and stuff like. People weren't friendly towards me. Generally, but I realized the problem was me, and the neighbors didn't like me, police didn't like me, even families would say to my cousins, don't play with him, you know.
Why though?
It's just always up to stuff.
Right.
So it was, looking back, you know, it was me, and that's when I realized around the same time that the common denominator in all of this, the problem was me. I was the problem. I wasn't the victim. I was the flipping problem.
That's really interesting though, because, and I want to choose my words carefully here, because there is a lot of victimhood at the moment. There is a lot of victim playing, and people play up to their circumstance, and you know the things that have happened to them, and they put them in victim state, and then they give up. What you're describing there is clearly some self-awareness, reflection.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's perfect. We do things that we regret, and but I think that's kind of a coming of age. We've got a rite of passage. You've got to go through those things, haven't you? Yeah. But it sounds like but at this stage you've had a bit of self-awareness, a bit of reflection, and now you're understanding. Right? Okay, I'm the problem here. I've got to change if I want to be like David Attenborough. What did you do at uni, by the way?
So I've got a bachelor's degree in environmental biotechnology. I managed to end on placement. I was a trainee medical microbiologist in a laboratory, which is so different from what if someone had told me as a teenager that would happen. But I found that very mundane, very repetitive. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, I was getting paid 8K for that year. I'm going to save this 8K and do a master's in environmental planning and management, and actually now follow my passion of captive breeding and reintroduction of endangered mammals. So that, we actually spoke about time, right, earlier, in the fluid state. I was the complete opposite of the fluid state. When I was working in a laboratory, it was so mundane, repetitive. No one spoke to, well, in fact, they didn't take it personally. They never spoke to each other. Right, no. They'd be working in the same laboratory for 10 years
because that's the work they want to do. Is like without talking to people,
and they just carry on. And and I'm a quite gregarious person, so I was like, "Can we put a radio on or something?" And honestly, it was the slowest year of my life. I'd really reluctantly, I'd be doing my pipettes and doing stuff, and I'd like, okay, look up at the clock, thinking it's probably going to be at lunchtime. It's like 16 minutes past 9. And I only started at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
That 60 minutes felt like 3 hours. It was such a slow year.
That's when you know you're not doing the work you're supposed to be doing. Yes.
But I knew I needed that money to do my masters.
Like you say, we've all got to do things.
Yeah, so I had to hang in there. Just do very mundane and repetitive stuff. So I did a master's in environmental planning and management after that.
And fast forward to today, you're literally living your dream. Like you're putting other people into those roles, but also
I owned a zoo for a short period as well.
You owned a zoo?
Yeah. So I've done a few things.
Hang on, this isn't that crap dad joke you were telling me.
No, an actual one.
Not a shit zoo.
Yeah. No, well, I thought it was a good zoo, but no, that joke always gets a good laugh.
It got me. Yeah. It got me. As crap as it was, it got me.
It was a proper dad joke.
It really is. But father as well. I tell them all the time. So tell me about the zoo. Okay. Hang on.
So basically, I've always wanted to do something with captive breeding, reintroduction, and I realized that humans are the problem with. The reason I wanted to work with endangered larger mammals because they're at the top of the food chain, and if the environment's protected for them, by default, everything below the food chain, it also, the whole ecosystem survives because they're the apex predator, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why I wanted to work with them. And the zoo came about around the same time as I set up Buckingham Futures, my business. I saw an opportunity where someone was looking for a partner where they were rescuing exotic pets. So it wasn't a zoo as in a sense of like London Zoo or something like that. There was a gentleman in Clacton. He had 5 acres, and he started with a couple of emus, a caiman similar to alligator. Mm-hmm. So he wanted some investment, and actually sort of built that up. So that's how that happened. So basically, I went into partnership with the gentleman. We started to then take on pets, but not guinea pigs or rabbits and stuff. We're talking about rees, iguanas.
That'd be food for them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, bearded dragons, fly river-nosed turtles. So all the kind of pets that people shouldn't really be keeping.
Yeah, because there's a bit of a black market for that kind of stuff, isn't there? Yeah.
So we started to take them on. And in fact, that's around the same time I decided that I don't want to consume meat anymore as well. I actually realized that working with animals, how compassionate they are with their children and how they think, and I gave up meat around the same time. But what it was, there's a llama. We had a llama. She had to have a cesarean, and actually sitting through that was the day. That's the most I've been spoken to without actually ever been spoken to. She had her stomach ripped open, the baby taken out, and she looked in my eyes and she just screamed. And I said, I can't. And that was a Friday, actually. I remember it. That Sunday, I've gone out with my mates. We've gone for a mixed grill, and I've just looked at stuff and I thought, you know what? I'm never going to eat this again.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. And that was it. So, yeah, so I owned that for a while. But it was difficult trying to be in Clacton and try and be in London and trying to launch this business. And at the same time, so he was living on site. It was seasonal. There was no footfall in the winter. We had a donkey. We could loan the donkey out for nativity and stuff. But beyond that, so everything that you make in the summer from selling animal feeds and stuff, by the winter, you put it back into feeding them, paying the staff, cleaning the enclosures. And it was actually just barely breaking even, not even breaking even. So I made the decision to step back from that. But yeah, so I temporarily was co-owner of a zoo.
That's mad. That's mad that you were a co-owner of a zoo. But at the same time, it makes perfect sense.
So I wanted to fulfill all my childhood dreams.
So that's quite interesting though, because obviously you're in recruitment and you're placing people into environmental and medical positions and health and safety and things, and that's, some might say that that's not quite, recruitment on its own is not quite aligned to what you've grown up doing. No. But at the same time, it's like what you're recruiting into.
Yeah, I'm placing professionals into environmental sector. Plus, I'm also very hands-on anyhow. So with my local temples, if we've got big events, I will work out the carbon offset for that.
Right.
In terms of the food that's coming in, the travel, how people are traveling, how many trees they need to plant to offset that. So I'm still very much hands-on. I do litter picking initiatives.
Just on that, if you don't mind, like actually, that's something I've never heard before. Is where I'm sure there are loads of companies out there that are doing that as within recruitment, but a recruitment company that is recruiting and acquiring talent into environmental and health positions, all the while looking at offsetting the carbon footprint of that as well. Like that seems like a real unique place in the market to me.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something, but I mentioned before, so we're doing a beach clean as well in a couple of weeks. So these are the type of things that I'm passionate about.
You're living and breathing it, aren't you, all the time?
I am. I'm blessed.
Well, you are now with some Yorkshire air. So,
yeah, very much so.
But yeah, so Buckingham Futures then. So when did that start? And
how did it start, or when did it start?
Well, when did it start?
Okay, 2012. I registered the business. Haven't had a business before that.
Wow, and it's still going today.
Yeah.
So those early years, then, like, tell us a little bit about the early years of Buckingham.
Because then, so my initial, to make it probably more understandable how I got into recruitment. Firstly, right? So I've done my masters. I've started to apply for jobs. Applied for so many vacancies, even like just zoo hand and stuff like that. So this was in 1998 now. Just to try and get some experience, get my foot in the door. I was getting no... Actually, let me take it back. So when I was doing my masters, I needed some information. This was pre-Google, long before ChatGPT wasn't even a thing. Even a thing, right? So you'd have to write to people to get information. My thesis was captive breeding and reintroduction of endangered mammals. And I was writing to zoos and breeding establishments and safari parks, pretty much all in the UK, across Europe and in America. And my head of, the gentleman who was marking my thesis, he called me in, said, look, you've literally got 3 months left. I haven't seen anything. And I said, I've written to all of these people. And I'm not getting any response. And I even remember this so clearly. He sat me down and he said, I don't even know how to say this to you, Ketan, but have you maybe tried using a more English sounding name?
Well,
so that's the day I thought, okay, my initials KD, Ketan Dattani. Who can I be? So I'm like, all right, I'm Keith Draper. That's my alias. So I became Keith Draper. Keith Draper wrote to the same zoological establishments. It got to the point I was going home. I'd get notifications from the post office saying that we tried to deliver something and you went home. I was getting too much information. So I did my thesis, got my master's, and then I thought about Stuart. I'm like, okay, so I've applied for hundreds, if not close to a year now. I'm working as a dispensing optician just to make ends meet while I'm trying to look for something within the environmental sector. And then no response at all, or 1 or 2 acknowledgement emails. I think I may have had, not even emails, sorry, letters. And then I thought, let me just try this. Keith Draper applied for 10 jobs. Jobs that I'd applied for within the last 3-4 weeks. Keith Draper got 8 interviews.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's genuinely disgusting.
Yeah. Same CV. I didn't change anything.
And this was late 90s.
Yeah. So that's when I saw a role for graduate training scheme for recruiters in the medical sector. So I did that for 2 years. But a year and a half into that, I was like, okay, I still want to do, I have a passion for something to do in the environment. So I said to my employers at the time, can I maybe look at, because I'm in the situation, there must be others. So now I've got a year and a half recruitment experience. I get the model. Why don't we start doing recruitment within the environmental sector? Unfortunately, because they were a medical recruitment company, they said, look, we can support you if you want to start another medical division. And they gave me, and I looked into it, speech and language therapist, phlebotomist, anything that, because I was doing doctors at the time, but they said that if it's something we're not doing, we can support you to start a new division. But it wasn't what I wanted to do. So after another 6 months, I actually left there and started working for an existing recruitment business, but set up an environmental recruitment division within existing recruitment. And I did that twice for about 6-7 years each time before setting up on my own.
It just sounds to me, and this is incredibly reductive, but so you're applying for these jobs as Ketan.
Yeah.
Not getting anywhere. Apply as Keith. You get 8 interviews.
80%.
Did, in inverted commas, Keith turn up to any of these interviews?
I'm like, nah.
You're not giving him the satisfaction, not giving him the time of day.
And they're big companies. In fact, 2 of them.
But that doesn't surprise me.
2 of them are my current clients.
Sorry, what?
2 of them I work with.
What now?
Yeah, but they don't know this. I'm not going to name and shame them because this was 2 of them.
That's really interesting.
2 organizations.
What a turnaround of events, eh?
Yeah.
But so then, and then you've gone into, a couple of these graduate schemes, etc. And now you're literally just you're doing it on your own. And I guess, I said earlier, obviously it didn't sound too aligned. Now it sounds perfectly aligned.
Yeah. Well, there's other stuff I have. So basically I'm working with the Ugandan government in working with the mountain gorillas. And by default, actually, so there's a tribe of people called the Batwa that live in the same area. So working with California University. So I'm still doing stuff outside of recruitment that's very much environmental.
But it's all linked.
Yeah.
It's all linked.
Yeah.
The recruitment is clearly how you make a living. You know, that's generating you an income. It's generating you a business that turns over money. But you're around it. You're doing what you're passionate about. And this is what I see actually with the most successful people is that they do the things around the business that doesn't necessarily generate the revenue, but it generates the opportunity. And
I'm very passionate about recruitment as well.
That's what I'm saying.
But because it's a sector I love, I want people to do well in it. And just by speaking to them, I feel like I'm still very much in that sector, especially grads, because there's so many innovations since I was studying it and so many developments that by speaking to them and by looking at their CVs, I actually feel I'm still learning.
But I imagine, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I imagine you're there looking at those CVs and you're seeing other Ketans and going, it's going to be different for you.
Well, it's a lot different, thankfully. But at the same time, it's not a very diverse sector. And so when we work with schools and colleges, and even universities, so accredited universities where I go to, the demographics of non-white students are overseas students. So once they've gone, they'll go back to Asia, Africa, or wherever. So the UK students are still predominantly white. That hasn't changed, sadly.
It's quite worrying.
Yeah, because it's but I think it's also the fact that minority parents aren't encouraging their children into careers. They think of finance, medicine. So it's not accountancy. So it's not what they they're not pushing the young people as well. So it's that young people don't understand because they've got no role models within that sector.
Yeah, there's no representation.
No, there's no representation. So they don't know what it is. And at the same time, their parents aren't encouraging them. And also, a lot of the programs you see about environmental health are very derogatory and detrimental and show you the worst aspects of it because it's ratings and viewings, like The Life of Grime, for example, or just show verminous premises or pest infestations. And that's not environmental health. That's if anything, a very small part of it, but that's what sells. And that's what when I go to schools and colleges and I ask people, what do you understand about environmental health? Just young people just don't understand it. Also, I feel that the sector is not doing enough in terms of representation. So when you go to careers events, you see the armed forces there, you see police there, you see medical professionals talking to young people. I feel environmental health as a career are not doing themselves justice. It's an aging population of environmental health professionals. Now there's the apprenticeships and stuff like that. So there's been a little bit of change over the last 2-3 years, but it's worrying about the future because there's not enough talent coming into the profession. And, there's so many people just don't understand or are aware of the career opportunities that are available.
It's crazy to me though, because, and I think about my own son, he's obsessed with nature. He loves animals and he's always out in the garden looking for bugs and things like that. And
sounds like me.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. And it's like there's millions of kids that are like that, but something changes. And what is it that changes? What is it? Is it just
world?
The modern world.
Modern world and gadgets take over now. We're talking about now.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was just trying to fit in and be accepted. It was what changed. My situation is different in that now I've actually got people that, they don't want to talk about this. So I'll talk about what they want to talk about. Now I just wanted to belong. So, and I realized that by talking about nature and ecosystems and environments and stuff like that, I was ostracizing myself almost.
Right.
So, but I was also into body popping and that was my commonality with other kids.
That's a weird Venn diagram, that, isn't it? Body popping and nature.
So I'd focus on what was deemed cool and kept that.
But that makes sense though, and I completely, having heard your story, I completely understand that as a young Asian kid growing up in Southeast London. That kind of you do what you need to do to survive. I'm not saying it should be that way, but that's what happens. And you do what you need to do to fit in. I would say most people don't have that problem. Most people are lucky and have that privilege not to go through what you've been through. And I feel
I'm actually grateful for it though. Now, looking back,
I can hear that, and I can see that having talked to you.
Yeah, I'm glad that happened to me. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have been the person I am today, and wouldn't have been as appreciative of everything.
But this is this seems to be a theme in these kinds of conversations. It's the theme of resilience. We go through hardships, and what you're saying there is that you've turned victimhood into and developed resilience, and then turned it into a bit of a, I don't really like the word, but you've turned it into a bit of a superpower, and then chased after what you wanted to do, which I think is incredibly admirable, actually. And you kind of living your childhood dream by the sounds of it. But there's millions of kids out there, whether they're white, Asian, Chinese, it doesn't matter, who have an affinity with nature, environment, but yet there's still something that stops them from going into it. I mean, I have my own preconceptions as to what I think it is, but I'm interested in what you think that might be.
Yeah, well, even though there's awareness now, I don't think it's really pushed, as I say, because there's no presence at careers events, and that's where people start making decisions about their A-levels, which A-levels are their degree. So it needs to be more, because people do come in, people from the fire services come in, and they do have primary schools. I think that's where the sort of passion dies at that point, and the gadgets take over, and young people hang around in the virtual world. That's their world. There's not like, you don't go knock for your mates now, do you? You kind of talk to them mostly on Snapchat and stuff like that. Because my son will say, "Oh, he's at, I'll check this location. He's such and such place. All right. Oh, he's doing this," and like it's a virtual world
it is
that
crazy.
They live in, right? So, in order for any profession but especially a profession that's struggling for intake, is to actually go and meet these people in their world that they're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The virtual world. To attract young people, you need to now start doing cool TikTok videos about environmental health and make it sexy, make the profession out there and make people aware that it's even a profession.
Do you see it improving?
I'm trying to single-handedly do that.
Is there anybody else in the space that you're working with?
There's a couple of people.
Yeah?
I'm actually I've got a podcast and called The Diary of an EHO. I've got someone coming on it. She does a few bits mainly on TikTok. So we're gonna collab this Thursday. I've had she'll be my 7th guest. So I've had 6 guests before. Great interviews, but they don't have that following so much on Insta and stuff like that. But it's been really good content, and we're now putting shorts and stuff like that. So it's getting interaction, but also just going to, I work with young people. I work with young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. I get young people within my business. I buddy them up with a mentor within my business, so they get a view of what the corporate world is, but also the type of roles that we place for. So it's really sowing the seed. If they have that interest, and actually then the seed will then grow. But you got to start somewhere.
Absolutely, you got to start somewhere. And if you see a problem, it's like what they're saying, isn't it? If you want something to change, you're going to have to be the change that you want to see. And I can't even remember who said that.
Mahatma Gandhi. He said, "Be the change you want to see in the world."
Brilliant. Yeah, and that's exactly what you're doing, isn't it? So so what's next for you? Like, what have you got coming up in the next sort of 6 to 18 months?
So I'm really excited because we started now to do work overseas. We've started to work with clients in the Middle East, West Africa. We're in discussions with clients in Hong Kong. So, and I've done a lot of publications, interviews for magazines, podcasts, and it's really just spreading the awareness about what's happening, but meeting young people. But also I take other people with me that are in that profession, because ultimately I'm passionate about the profession. I've studied the profession, and I do sort of have my toes a little bit in the profession, but I bring people with me that are diverse, that are actually working in the profession, and I do careers events, panel discussions and stuff like that.
Brilliant.
With schools, colleges. So these are the young people that before they make their career choices. But at the same way, there's a lot of people coming back into mature student, change of careers and stuff like that. So yeah, the next grow the business, look more into affiliated areas. At the moment, 70% of our clients are local authorities. We want to do more stuff with private sector. But continue on the side also doing voluntary work with young people.
Amazing.
Pushing the profession.
Well, listen, I wish you all the best of luck with it, because I think it's incredibly admirable. I think it's worthy. It definitely needs to happen, and more young people, I think, need to be aware of.
Yeah, I mean, as a parent, possible. You know, even just within our lifetimes, so many species have been lost, and you don't just want to be able to see these species in a zoo. You want to be able to go into, and that's why I'm very much for ecotourism and stuff like that. So people can go and see these animals in their natural habitats, not in a closed, like with a feeding time, and, to sort of keep the natural instincts and stuff like that. So you want your children and their children to be able to, you don't want this story of the dodo saying that we used to have tigers, we used to have this, we used to have rhinos, and we've got photos, and this, these we coexisted. Well, not coexisted. They shared the earth with us at one point, and now they're no longer here because of what we've done. We want your future generations to be able to appreciate these things.
Yeah, I think actually, just quickly on that, I mean, obviously there is a natural cycle to things, and circumstance and environment can change, irrespective of humans from what we've seen.
But it's exactly
we just do not want humans to be the cause of something going.
No, obviously there's going to be natural disasters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And species deviate. Some species will naturally die out. They can't compete. Then that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But the speed that extinction is happening now has never ever been seen in human history.
No.
I mean, sorry, the Earth's history.
It's a scary thought, but you're incredibly positive about it.
I think, look, we could stem the tide and slow things down. And I just think there's a lot more awareness. I've got friends within the aviation industry. There's just a lot more awareness now. And I think it's really about funding and acting on this while there is this awareness. But also changing the stereotype for young people, because they quite often see the careers in the environment. They don't really understand it. They think, I'm passionate about it, but what would I do? Would I be super gluing myself to motorways and stuff like, that type of thing? There's not anyone out there doing environment or they would deem as cool, right? And where there's these influencers and TikTokers and there's all these other people that are doing their various professions, and that appeals to young people. So there needs to be I wouldn't say a David Attenborough, but a young person that is promoting environmental causes, but in a place where young people hang out, i.e. the virtual world, and they like and share and comment and basically just raise their awareness.
It's funny as well. I've just thought, and we will kind of get to the end, but like I said, my son's incredibly passionate about it, and I feel like there are some younger sort of people coming through, but that not young as such, but Steve Backshall, for instance, my son absolutely adores him, and he looks up to him, and he's in his 50s, but
there's nothing wrong with being in your 50s.
Yeah. You're in your 50s?
Yeah.
Christ almighty, let's cut it there now. But yeah, there are, but no, these younger than David Attenborough anyway.
Yeah.
Because I think we've all wondered that. It's like when David Attenborough goes, who's going to take that? Who's going to take the lead there? And it'll be the same for his for the next person and what have you. But yeah, I think it's really interesting.
There are other people, but I think David Attenborough, he just appeals to everyone.
He's one of a kind, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. You got Chris Packham.
Yeah.
So you've got, I wouldn't say successors, because their shoes can't be filled.
No.
But there's other people that will still fly the torch of nature and conservation and stuff in the future, in the very long future.
Amazing. Ketan, if people want to find you, where can they go online to find you?
So quite active on Instagram. On Instagram, I'm Ketan Nova, and on LinkedIn, my full name is Ketan Dattani. So these are the two platforms I'm most active on. But also we have the Diary of the EHO podcast, which is on Instagram under the banner of Buckingham Blueprint. We'll be on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere.
Amazing. Hey, listen, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
I've loved this conversation.
Likewise.
It's like digging deep into...
I appreciate you a lot. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it.